Attention troops, it is Stormy of course, and welcome back to another Q&A video. It's been quite a while since I've done a Q&A video, but I always have so much fun answering all of your questions. You guys come up with the best questions ever, and I have the best time just reading them, going through them, coming up with more theories, discussing stuff with you guys. That's what this channel is about. It's about the community of Star Wars. And it is New Year's Day today, so I'm just sitting here. I'm actually waking up on New Year's Day today. It doesn't feel any different, but I know it is different. I hope you guys are having a fantastic long holiday weekend yourselves. I know I am. And so without further ado, before I blather on too much as I always do, let's jump into this Q&A with my very first question. So our first question up today is coming from Mr. E. Mr. E, one of my strongest supporters on this channel, has been here for quite a while, and he has a very, very interesting question here, which I really enjoy, which is, do you think that Rey is a Joan of Arc type character? Now check this out, guys, listen to this. You know, Joan of Arc, of course, the famous martyr, who received visions instructing her to support Charles VII and recover France from the English, and she led a series of campaigns against them until she was eventually captured and burned at the stake by the English. Now, Mr. E is saying here, what he's saying is, perhaps Rey is just like this, meaning that, you know, when we come into The Last Jedi, maybe she will never find her place with the Resistance. I mean, think about this, guys. Like, what if she is receiving visions for a reason? You know, we all know that she touched Kylo Ren's hand, and she receives these visions about Kylo Ren and his redemption. Well, what if this starts to cause some animosity in the ranks of the Resistance? Imagine how Finn would react to Rey continuously going after Kylo Ren, trying to save him, because she thinks that that's the reason that she's receiving visions, is to save Kylo Ren. What if Rey's arc, what if her entire arc is only to save the Skywalker bloodline, the last of the Skywalker bloodline, which is Kylo Ren? What if that's her entire arc? And imagine the animosity that that would create between her and the Resistance, and she never finds her place because of that. I think that that is a fascinating question because, I mean, think about, just like I said, how much that would tear, a lot of people that think that Finn and Rey, are going to get into some kind of a relationship in this movie, and they're going to be like the new leaders of the Resistance. Well, that can't happen if Rey keeps going after Kylo Ren. If she keeps going after him, saying, no, I've got to redeem this guy. Imagine how Finn would react to that. What do you mean you're going to save Kylo Ren? Don't save Kylo Ren. He's evil. No, he's not evil. He has good in him still. I'm going to go save him. And all of a sudden, now she's not a part of anything. Now she really is a loner. Maybe that really will cause her to go off on her own, study the Jedi books by herself, and become a great Jedi. Great question, and I think it's definitely possible. Now, the next set of questions up today is coming from my channel monitor, Andrew, good buddy of mine. Do a lot of collaborations with him over on his own channel called This Is a Rebellion, Isn't It, I Rebel? Make sure you guys check it out because you might miss a lot of collabs that we do together, and he makes great content, so make sure you hit him up with a sub for sure. And he always asks me a couple of great questions. First one up here is quite intriguing, actually. It's, do you think that The Last Jedi was fan service for Reylo fans, especially that scene with Kylo with his shirt off? I think we all know that famous scene. It's going to be a famous scene pretty soon. But do I think that The Last Jedi was fan service for Reylo fans? No, like, I don't think it was fan service for Reylo fans. I think that that one scene with his shirt off was definitely purely fan service for Reylo fans, because what else could it have been? I mean, I know that I had my head in my hands, literally in my hands, in the theater while I was watching that scene, and I couldn't help but think that they put that in there just for Reylo fans. So I think that that one scene was, but no, definitely the entire movie was not service for Reylo fans. In fact, it was quite the opposite, because I think that we're starting to see them go in opposite directions if that redemption arc doesn't work out, especially. Now for the second question, he says, do you think that we'll see that boy at the end of the film in Episode 9 all grown up? Of course, he's talking about the kid who grabbed the broom with the Force and who has the rebel ring. He's saying, you think that we're going to see that kid all grown up in Episode 9? Well, that depends on how much time passes between episode 8 and 9, because we know, in between The Force Awakens and episode 8, absolutely no time passed. It started immediately after The Force Awakens. So how far is the gap going to be between episode 8 and 9? I'm not sure, but I think based on The Force Awakens, the gap between The Force Awakens and episode 8, I don't think it's going to be that big. But that's not to say that we won't see the kid. I think we will see the kid. I think that Rian Johnson has absolutely got plans for him, but I think we'll see him as like a 13, 14-year-old kid, maybe as part of the new Jedi Order, or maybe Rey's new Grey Jedi, whatever she's cooking up there. But again, this really determines, it depends on how much time passes between the movies, because if not that much time passes, then that's a kid who will be used in the future trilogy. Not in episode 9, but he'll be probably a focal point in the future trilogy. And of course, I'd be really excited to see that. I'm already excited to see where Rian Johnson and JJ both may take that kid, because he may be the spark of the new Jedi Order. He may be like the first new Jedi in the new temple. So there's so many directions that they can take that child's character. Really excited to see it. Now, a third question he asked me here, just kind of a general question, which is, did I see Gareth Edwards as a Resistance officer, or I should say a Resistance trooper, on Crait for the Battle of Crait? And yes, I did. I noticed that right away on my first viewing. I noticed it as soon as he lifted his head up. In fact, I think that they did that scene just for Gareth Edwards, where the guy comes out and he tastes the salt. I think they did that just so Gareth Edwards could look up and look over at the guy, which is totally fine. And I hope that they keep doing that in the future. I love seeing director cameos. Of course, Rian Johnson did one in Rogue One as well. So I love that. I hope they keep that tradition going, the director cameo. It's like a new Star Wars tradition. It's really, really cool. That George Lucas started that actually back in Revenge of the Sith. And so I hope they continue that, because it's a really, it's a fun aspect of the movies, to be sure. Now, for the fourth question he asked is, do you think that The Last Jedi is the darkest Star Wars movie yet? He says no. He says that The Last Jedi is not the darkest Star Wars movie yet. And guys, of course it's not. I think that all of us can pretty much agree that Revenge of the Sith is the darkest Star Wars movie ever. It is the darkest ever. I think it might be, I mean, unless, of course, we're probably going to have some darker movies in the future, but as of right now, nothing really tops the dramatic emotion and just the events that take place, the very, very severe, dark events that take place in Episode 3. You know, a lot of people kept saying that The Last Jedi was going to be the darkest film in the franchise, and then Rian Johnson, a couple of weeks before the movie came out, said, you know, I also want people to understand that this movie is fun. And that was like my first red flag. I was like, okay, so it's not the darkest movie in the franchise. I think that that was just a natural assumption that everybody made, but it's really not, is it? The Last Jedi is kind of fun. It's really magical and enchanting, and it's a fun adventure. It's very uplifting, it's very motivating, and it's very sad. I think it's probably the saddest movie in the trilogy, but then again, Episode 3 is also the kind of the saddest in the Star Wars saga, isn't it? So I think that Last Jedi was just a fun action piece, really, in between The Force Awakens and Episode 9 that gave us a lot of expansive Force mythology, lots of shocking things to take into consideration, and is a masterpiece in its own right. But it is definitely not the darkest film. It's pure fun. It's pure fun, just like every Star Wars film is. It has slightly darker tones, but not as many as I thought there would be, for sure. Now for his fifth question, another fun question here. He asked me, what's my new favorite creature in the Star Wars universe? Do I like the Porgs, the Crystal Foxes, which are the Vulptexes, that's their official name, or the Space Horses, the Falthiers? Now this is kind of this is a little bit difficult for me, because even though I didn't like the sequence that they were involved in, the whole Canto Bight sequence, I really love the Fathiers. The Falthiers or Fathiers. Rose calls them Fathiers in the movie. I don't like that. I like Falthiers. I like that much better, so that's what I'm going to call them. Really cool design. I love the design of the Space Horses. They were really, really cool. They're really, really awesome. Really, really touching creatures. In a lot of ways. But you know what? If I was pressed, I would definitely say the Crystal Foxes, the Vulptexes. I love the Vulptexes. What a cool design to basically make a fox, a white fox, with these huge ears and this tiny little cute face. Reminds me a lot of my cat's face. But then to make the fur out of crystals, like they're mini chandeliers, and then when they run and they walk, you can hear like the clanking of the glass and everything. Such a cool design, one of the coolest creatures in the Star Wars universe, and definitely my favorite for The Last Jedi. I know a lot of you guys out there probably love the Porgs. I don't really care for the Porgs. The Porgs were toys, guys. I mean, they were toys. They were made just to sell toys. They weren't even portrayed that well in the film. I mean, that scene where Chewie is eating the Porg, and the Porg is looking up at Chewie with that sad face, and they hold on the Porg's sad face for like 10 seconds, and they keep cutting back to it. It's like, that's what I'm talking about. Or that scene where the Porgs like are trying to accidentally, click the lightsaber on and kill themselves. It's just like, that's what they were used for. They were just the cute animals of the film. And they had some cute and funny moments throughout the movie, but I just think, and they were really cool, practical effects as well. So definitely a lot of massive respect for that. But they were toys, guys. They were toys. So I don't really care for the Porgs. Now, as for his last question here, really, really loaded question, but I'm going to try to answer it as simplistic as I can. Do you think that Kylo Ren is lying about Rey's parents, or is he right, but only from a certain point of view? Now, like I said, I'm going to try to answer this simplistic here, as short as I can, because I actually have a video coming up about this topic. A lot of you guys who follow me on Twitter might have noticed that one of my upcoming videos is called Rey's Parents Are No One and Someone. And I can't wait to put this video together because he actually does touch on a good point here, which is that, Kylo could be lying to her to try to manipulate her a little bit further, but he also could be right. But we're just looking at it from the wrong point of view. You see where I'm going with this? Her parents could be no one, but they could be someone at the same time. And I'm going to get into that more for the video. I don't want to ruin the video, basically, for you guys. That's coming up in just 2 weeks' time. But basically, if I could just simplistically answer this with a simple question, I think that, yes, he may be right, but it's the point of view that we need to take into consideration, is that he is not completely lying to her, but he is playing with her a little bit to draw a reaction and to send her in an opposite direction. He wants to send her in a particular direction and on a particular path, thinking that she is no one, thinking that she has no parents, because that will cause her to act and think in different ways. So he definitely could be manipulating her. But that point of view, man, wait till you guys see this video. It's a pretty fascinating topic, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. For my next question up today, actually I've got 2 questions here coming from Amanda Barbola. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Amanda Barbola. It's good to see you around again. I haven't seen you in a while. Hi Amanda, thank you for the questions. She used to be around a lot asking me questions for my Q&A, so I'm really happy to see you back asking questions again. Good to see that you didn't bail on this channel, or you didn't take off and go find another better suitable Star Wars channel for you. So thank you for sticking around and asking questions as you always do. Now, the first question that she asked is, my feelings on Luke Skywalker's exit into the everlasting Force. Man, do I feel mixed about this, still to this day. And this is the reason, I really think that Luke should have stayed around until Episode 9. That's basically it in a nutshell, is that I think that Luke had so much more to teach. We had so much more to learn from him, and everybody was kind of waiting to see Luke at, like, God status, and we kind of got that because of his Force projection, and I mean, that takes an immense amount of power to be able to do that. So we did see him at God status, but not really, right? Because he wasn't there. Like, he wasn't actually there. He wasn't actually physically there. So like, we didn't get to really experience any more training or from Luke, or teaching from Luke, or lessons from Luke, or any more great superpowers or something like that. I think that Luke had so much more to do on screen. And yeah, he's probably gonna be back as a Force ghost in Episode 9, but in many ways that's not good enough, because, going into the film, all of us thought that Leia was going to be the one to disappear into the Force. They kept saying that, oh yeah, you know, like we've got this beautiful send-off for Leia and everything, so everyone assumed that she was going to be the one that disappeared into the Force. So it was just shocking. It was really shocking to see Luke to be the one to disappear into the Force, because it's like, hold on a minute, like that can't be it for Luke. Like, he's got so much more to do, you know, like that can't be it. But you know, now that I've let all my preconceived notions go, I can shed a tear during that moment in the film, really, because it really was beautifully done. It was such a beautiful moment, him sitting there on the rocks, and then the twin suns appear in the sky, and he finds his moment of peace, and he lets himself go into the Force. It's one of the most beautiful moments in Star Wars, but it's just, oh, Luke, why couldn't you stay around until Episode 9, man? You know, like, why couldn't you just stay around? Train Rey more. You know, Rey had so much more to learn from you, you know. I would have loved to see him stay around until Episode 9 to continue that training, but, alas, he is transformed into the Force, and I'm sure we will see him back for Episode 9 as a Force Ghost to hopefully continue a little bit of that training. So, as for her second question here, she asks, will the next film be more centered on Luke's backstory? This is, I really want to say yes and no to this question, and I'll tell you why I'm going to say yes and no to this question, because, you know, yes, because we need some kind of backstory for Luke to be mentioned in Episode 9, just like we need some kind of semblance, basically, for Snoke in Episode 9. We need like a couple of sentences of backstory for Luke and for Snoke so we can get a good idea of kind of like where they're coming from. But the reason I say no to that is because now that Luke is gone, they're going to be centered solely on the new characters for Episode 9. And you guys also have to keep in mind that now that Dave Filoni is not doing Rebels anymore, he's entering into a new project. Well, you know what that new project is going to be? I guarantee you guys it's going to be that 30-year gap in between The Last Jedi and Return of the... Oh God. The Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi. Wow. It's going to be that 30-year gap. And in that 30-year gap, that's where we can feature all of our characters. The new Jedi Temple, Luke Skywalker, you know, a younger Luke, of course, Snoke, Lor San Tekka, the Knights of Ren, the ex-students from Luke's Jedi Temple, you know. That's where we have all of the room to feature all of our characters' backstories and a bunch of new stories as well, which will give us a more complete look at the new trilogy. So I would say yes and no to those questions. Now for my very last set of questions here today, and I'm sure glad you guys ask 4 or 5 questions per question because my Q&A would be over already. Unfortunately, I don't get that big of a response from my Q&As, at least not yet. And these questions are coming from my good buddy AO98. Such a fantastic contributor to this channel, been around for a long time, and a fantastic theorist as well. I look forward to doing much more collaborations with him in the future, much more theories, because all of you guys really come up with such great theories and suggestions for my channel, and I cannot wait to keep that going and hear more theories from you guys in the future, of course. Now his first question today is, do I believe that JJ can save Star Wars with Episode 9? Oh my goodness, what a question. You know, here's another one that I'm going to have to answer yes and no. Yes, because, you know, this is the reason that they brought JJ back. They brought him in to kind of like bookend the trilogy. You know, Rian Johnson was brought in to shock us. JJ was brought in to ground Star Wars fans again, to kind of bookend the trilogy, to kind of give it a nice rounded edge, like a nice oval shape, basically, to the trilogy, with a lot of spastic Force mythology, a lot of shocking things in the middle, but then you got that Episode 9 to basically round everything out. So, yes, I do think that JJ can save the franchise in that respect. But, however, this is why I say no. And it's because of The Last Jedi. Look, whether you can love this film, you can absolutely 100% love this film, but you can't deny that after The Last Jedi, fans are starting to split apart. Okay, there's a huge rift growing in the community right now. And I'm not even sure that even if JJ comes back for Episode 9, look, will Episode 9 bomb at the box office? Obviously not. Tons of Star Wars fans are going to be coming out, obviously, like they always do, to come see these films. But The Last Jedi is a focal point of the trilogy. That's a determining point of the trilogy, is Are fans going to continue to follow Disney's franchise, or are they going to recoil and pull back? And that's why I would say that there is a chance that no, JJ cannot save this franchise, because it's not up to JJ, is it? It's not up to Disney, it's up to the fans. It's how the fans respond to things. Now, I don't think that there's enough backlash, because the critics still really loved the Last Jedi, so I don't think there's enough backlash to cause that kind of reaction, but that's why it's kind of like a yes and no question to me. But I do think that that's the reason that they brought JJ in, was to kind of draw more fans back in. Like, yeah, we know that you guys didn't really like The Last Jedi. A lot of you guys may have not liked The Last Jedi, but you know what? We're bringing JJ back in to round it out so you guys can feel a little bit safer. So, yeah, another yes and no question for sure. Now, for the second question up today, he asks, do I still think that there's a chance for Rey to be a Skywalker or a Solo? Man, another really, really loaded question. And yet another question, I'm going to have to say, it could go either way. It can be a yes or a no. If you were to ask me personally, I really, really want to say yes, because I do think that there is a way that you can do a complete character arc in one movie. But for a character like Rey, I don't know. I think that they would have revealed that in Episode 8, don't you? I think that that reveal would have come in Episode 8 and continued through Episode 9, because we know that Daisy Ridley's not coming back to play Rey. We also know that the Skywalker storyline ends after this new trilogy. So, if you were to reveal her as a Skywalker in Episode 9, it's like, where are we going with this? You know, she's going to be revealed as a Skywalker and then disappear or be killed in Episode 9? It's like, well, why'd you reveal her as a Skywalker? Or at least, why didn't you do it in Episode 8 so that we could continue it through? But even with all that said, it is entirely possible to do an entire arc, even for someone connected to the Skywalker bloodline, in one story, in one movie, just as long as you do it right. So, is there a chance for her to still be a Skywalker or a Solo? Yes, I'll say yes. I'll say a yes to that question, but it's not a definite yes. It's definitely not a definite yes, for sure. Now for the third question he asked here, do I believe that the Knights of Ren will return in Episode 9? This one I can give you a confident answer for. Absolutely 100% yes. I do believe the Knights of Ren have a solid chance of coming back in Episode 9, and I actually have a video coming up about this week. So once again, this isn't a question that I can get too much into right now, but this week I have a video coming out called Luke's Son, Snoke's Secret Apprentice, and the New Master of the Knights of Ren. I think that title itself is pretty revealing, and it's basically a theory just discussing how you know, another good friend of mine, Jedi Master Daniel, came up with a theory about Luke having a secret son. And I said, well, how could this work? Well, it could work if he was the one that broke off with the Knights of Ren. Say, like, you know, we heard that story about Snoke having at least one more apprentice, right? Well, what if Snoke's apprentice was Luke's son, and Luke's son is now the new master of the Knights of Ren? This is why we don't see them in Episode 8, because they're off with the new apprentice, which is Luke's son, doing other activities, creating their own factions. And once again, just like the last question, is it possible to have a Skywalker story arc in one movie? Yes, it is entirely possible to have a whole arc of a character happen in one movie, and it could be Luke's son. I mean, imagine if the Knights of Ren were like the villain for Episode 9. I mean, we know John Boyega has said that Episode 9 is going to be about a war to end all wars, right? Well, that means a bunch of different factions coming together. What if, you know, 5 or 7 years passes between The Last Jedi and Episode 9, and the Knights of Ren have only grown in numbers. Their ranks have grown, and they're basically like a new Sith army. You know, you see where I'm going with this? And you have all of these factions coming together to collide for this one great war, so it is entirely possible, and I honestly can't wait to see if that is going to develop in the future, because there's a lot of good theories to be discussed about that, and I can't wait for you guys to see this video coming up next week, this week, actually. So please look forward to that video. Now, question number 4, more of a fun, lighthearted question here. Do I believe that Finn Rey still has a chance of happening? Of course, that is the relationship developing between Finn and Rey. Absolutely, without a doubt. I think that, you know, most Star Wars fans out there, even if you are fans of other theories, totally agree that Finn and Rey kind of deserve to be together. I mean, look at Finn's arc from The Force Awakens. And even into The Last Jedi, he's obsessed with finding Rey. He really, I think he has a huge soft spot for Rey in his heart. I mean, you see them embrace there at the end of The Last Jedi, such a loving embrace from both of them there at the end of the film. Finn definitely likes Rey. I just don't know if it goes both ways. That's what we have to develop in Episode 9. But if you were to ask me what is the relationship that I want to most see in Episode 9, it's definitely Finn and Rey. Finn and Rey deserve it. This Finn and Rose thing that they got, I don't know what they were doing with that in The Last Jedi, but they need to get rid of that. They could have had a chance to develop a great romance, but, you know, one kiss at the end of the movie doesn't quite do it, you know. So Finn and Rey definitely has a chance to happen for sure, and that's what I'd love to see. I would love to see that happen because I think that most of us have been pulling for that since The Force Awakens has come out. They really deserve each other when you think about it, so yes, definitely. Now, this last question here, what a great question to end on because I love this question here. I love this because it sparks a lot of ideas for me. He asks, do I believe that we will see Hayden Christensen return for Episode 9? And this, I love this question. You know why I love this question? Because I was trying to think of like, you know, how could Hayden Christensen be involved in Episode 9? You know, like, because realistically when you think about it, like, why would they bring Hayden Christensen back? I mean, nobody wants to see a young Vader or a Vader clone or a Vader ghost that looks like Hayden. I mean, a few of you guys out there might, but I certainly don't. And so I started thinking to myself, you know, what's a good way for Hayden Christensen to come back into Episode 9? Well, apply it to one of the earlier questions that I just had. Imagine if Hayden Christensen came back for Episode 9 to play Luke's son, Master of the Knights of Ren. Now that would be fascinating to see. I mean, of course, Hayden is still around the right age to portray Luke's son. It would be fitting to the Star Wars universe because he's Anakin Skywalker, and now he's coming back to play this role. And of course, they can put some makeup on him and stuff like that to make him look different than Anakin Skywalker, because the big issue is that in canon, he is Anakin Skywalker, and if he were to come back to play another character like that, you would have to make him look kind of different. But of course they could. You know, of course they could make him look different. They could completely alter his appearance so that he could portray Luke's son. What a fascinating take that would be. But you know what? Even if he wasn't playing Luke's son, I would still love to see Hayden Christensen come back. He could play, you know, a First Order officer or a member of the new Jedi Council or one of Rey's students, you know, or a bounty hunter or something like that. I mean, there's so many possibilities for him to portray a certain character, but regardless, I would just love to see Hayden Christensen come back for Episode 9. I mean, a lot of us got really excited when we heard those, they were rumors, obviously, about Hayden Christensen's possible involvement in Episode 8. A lot of us got really, really excited to see him come back. Why? Because we all want him to come back in some way, shape, or form. We'd love to see him. You know, he still receives a lot of hate to this day for the prequels, so in a lot of ways, it would be like a redemption for him, you know, to come back into this new trilogy and to actually be, to have his character developed by a really, really talented director like J.J. Abrams, you know, to really sit down and develop his character, to pull all of that acting out of him that you could. That would be so great to see. I would love to see that happen. And man, what a great question. Yeah, I'd love it. Well, troops, that's going to do it for this Q&A. Thank you guys so much for submitting all of those questions. You guys ask the most fantastic questions ever. It causes me to think of so many more theories and so many more ideas, and I have so much fun just discussing all of these different topics with you guys. Q&As are the best, and I can't wait to do future Q&As here in the future, and hopefully I'll get more questions from people in the future, because I know so many of you guys out there just have such great minds for Star Wars, and I want to hear all of your questions because it causes just, you know, the best discussions in the world. Sometimes the best discussions ever pertaining to Star Wars come solely from Q&As, and that's why I love to do Q&As on this channel. Even though I haven't done that much, I plan to do much more, many more in the future, definitely. So thank you all so much for asking your questions, and think of more for the future too, because I'm definitely going to be having another Q&A pretty soon, I think anyway. If I have enough time to do it, I'll definitely fit it into my schedule. But as always, for right now, guys, stay tuned for more videos to come. I have 3 videos planned for the next couple of weeks. If you guys want to check out that schedule that I put up, you guys can head over to my Twitter page, @ShortStormy, and check out my schedule, because I'm always updating you guys over there on Twitter about just, my life, events in my life, Short Stormtrooper, news, theory, all kinds of stuff going on my Twitter page, so make sure you guys head over there as well. And thank you guys so much for joining me for this Q&A. I hope you guys also got a lot of good insight out of this Q&A, and please leave all of your thoughts and opinions down below in the Great White Void, as always, and I'll see you guys back here for the next video very soon. As always, until next we meet, stay in a galaxy far, far away.